We're going to give it just one more minute to let some folks log in. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. This webinar is being presented in Zoom and YouTube concurrently. If you're in Zoom and you have a question, go ahead and use the chat to send it to all presenters. If you're in YouTube, you can just type it into the chat there and we'll share it with the presenter. If you're having any technical issues, you can email education@oregonrealtors.org or call our office number. If you registered for this event, your CE is being processed and will show up in your Ramco account shortly. I would like to thank Dirk Zeller for joining us this morning. Dirk is going to be presenting today, Position Your Authority for Persuasion and Profit. Dirk is has been a licensed agent, principal broker, investor, speaker, author, sales coach for more than 30 years. He's authored 11 books and presented at sales conferences worldwide. He's presented more than 6,000 times in a live virtual classroom. We were just chatting about that. And Dirk has a really great history of teaching real estate online. Inman News recognized him as one of the top 25 coaches in the real estate field. And he's also one of our members of the Professional Development Key Committee here at Oregon Realtors. So Dirk, thanks so much for joining us. And I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Erica. I'm delighted to be here and get an opportunity to present and engage with realtors all over the state of Oregon. So thank you all for taking the time to invest in yourself as well as invest in your education. What I see in this transitioning marketplace that we have, this type of marketplace that we're experiencing right now, one of the things is we've got to be able to position ourselves as an expert. We've got to be able to build trust, build credibility, and engage with these prospects to get them to take actions that are beneficial to them. And that's really what today is all about. What are the sources that are easy, efficient, and effective to raise your expert status, where to go to find information, how to package that information, and ultimately how to position you as an expert and an authority in terms of the marketplace. That's really what our objectives are today in working with you, is help you be the best that you can be the most persuasive that you can be in terms of getting people off the fence. Now, again, I really want to be key on this. It is not about making sales for the sake of sales. It's about positioning you as an expert and an authority in today's marketplace and really being able to take your persuasion to the next level. So let's go ahead and dive in to that in terms of what we're doing and how we're doing it overall, okay? And I'm trying to, it's invariable that somebody that does a ton of presentations is having problems, challenges, and issues with the screen share overall.
It's the Zoom curse. You're not the first to have this. It's the Zoom curse.
Oh, it's wonderful. It keeps everybody guessing and on their feet and engaged with what we're doing. But the key, everybody, is really making sure that you are persuading people to, as I said, take action and take authority in terms of the engagement you're doing. Here's the thing that we've got to understand. People are focused around doing business with you when they know, like, and trust you. When they know, like, and trust you. That's the key, and we all know that. I'm not saying anything new that you don't fundamentally know. The real question is, how do you accomplish that? right? How do you accomplish that engagement in trust and that engagement in terms of how you build that trust with other people? Now, obviously, if it's a past client or sphere of influence or somebody that you've fundamentally been referred to, that fundamental trust that you're trying to build, all right, is much easier to build because you're building it through a relationship, right? You're building it through a relationship that you already have. You're leveraging that relationship, okay? And what you've got to look at is really the relationship in today's world, because we're so influenced by social media, so influenced by the information that's out there in the open, so influenced by third-party websites. There's a lot of data and information, as an example, on Zillow, where more than 60% of the people are going to look up properties, right? The credibility, trust, and engagement that you have with these prospects needs to be core in terms of the numbers, the influence, the data that you fundamentally convey to them and use in a persuasive manner. There was a great book that was written a couple of years ago. It was called The Challenger Sale. The Challenger Sale. You may want to look it up, right, in terms of this, because it was a brilliantly written book. And understand, the consumer, the data, the information that they came up with, it was two guys, Dixon and Adamson, from the Wall Street Journal in the sales division, sales department, if you will, in the Wall Street Journal. They conveyed the fact that ultimately, right, that the consumer and the top sales performers, they profiled 6,600 different companies and the absolute top sales performers from each of those companies. And they recognized that these people were doing something a little different. And what they were doing is they were challenging the customer. They were challenging the customer's thinking. They were bringing new information to bear, and they were fundamentally challenging that thinking that the customer had and has in terms of their thought process in the marketplace, the products and services. And it doesn't mean that they were in a tussle, but they were bringing something new to bear with that client and getting them to understand there was a difference in what they were thinking and what was really reacting in the marketplace. It was a beautifully written book, and it's very valid to fundamentally look at it that way and recognize that we have to challenge the customer. Now, I'm going to try to create some interactivity here. There are misconceptions that consumers have about the marketplace today. There are misconceptions that consumers have about the marketplace, and that's true of any data point, any point in any marketplace fundamentally. They will have misconceptions. So here's the question, and I want everybody to chat in here. What do you think? And for those of you watching this on recording, I would ask that you write down some of the challenges that you feel that clients, misconceptions that buyers have, misconceptions that sellers have in today's marketplace. Because we're going to look at data that will help you specifically to engage with those particular people. So I'm going to get quiet for just a moment and let you chat in a few of these things. We'll give you a minute to 90 seconds to be able to do that. And then we'll come back and we'll respond and engage off those misconceptions that consumers have. I need to get Jeopardy music when I do these pauses.
Just kidding.
Thank you, Erica. Everybody, let's chat in. Misconceptions. I know there's a handful of you here. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Erica. Anybody else? Trying to share these slides, but they sure don't seem to want to share. The curse of Zoom. Let me see if I can re-download them. Okay. So let's deal with these, okay? First, current seller's marketplace, we should price our home high, right, and come down later, okay? So ultimately, right, in terms of pricing high and coming down later, I would be showing them list price to sell price. I would be showing inventory levels. I would be showing what's happening in today's marketplace and the engagement in terms of what's happening in today's marketplace, okay, in terms of that, okay. I would be looking at, there's nothing on the marketplace in your price range, as we're moving into the broader shoulder season of the marketplace, trying to start convincing buyers that they have a better opportunity to get a home in today's marketplace with less competition. We're going to start seeing some competition drop out in the latter stages of the fourth quarter and in terms of buyers, and be able to engage with that competition and get them over the hump. I think it's really one of those scenarios that we have in today's marketplace that we need to overcome. And everybody, my view is the interest rates are likely they're going to be staying the same. We're not going to see a big spike in interest rates. And so we need to frame interest rates in a scenario that engages with consumers. And what I mean by engages is this. 18 months ago, 19 months ago, we were at 4.75% interest rate. We were at 4.5% interest rate. Now we're roughly at 3%. We need to frame that differential. What would it be, payment, et cetera, wise for them at 4.75% as compared to 3% where we're at presently? What is the savings? What is that differential? Now, here's what I'll tell you, everybody. I already did that math. On a $300,000 mortgage, you're talking about a $1,264 payment today. On a 4.75, you're talking about $1,564. The buyer today has more than $70,000 in buying power that did not exist 19 months ago. We've got to be able to frame that differential and frame that opportunity for those individuals so they fundamentally can engage and write and move beyond the nature of the marketplace, okay? And we need to be able to engage with them and write, work from that particular perspective in terms of moving this along, all right? How many of you get the home buyer and seller report from NAR every year? They've been doing it for 30, 35 years. The NAR home buyer and seller report is one of the best things, in my opinion, that NAR does in terms of the research and the data and the communication that we fundamentally have to consumers in today's marketplace, right? And I think, it's to me, it's key in regards to being able to build trust and credibility. It's one of the key pieces to the overall puzzle in being able to build trust and credibility in engaging clients and prospects. And wonderful, everybody. I will tell you that it's been, I've been working behind the scenes, fundamentally trying to get this up and going, and formally, thank you, have it. The Challenger sale looks like this, just to confirm with everybody, the book, all right? And we looked at misconceptions. Here's the NAR home buyer and seller report. It's the most recent one, and it's sitting in front of you. I'm going to go through some charts and graphs. To me, I would be getting the NAR home buyer and seller report every year. It's about $20. And in fact, here's what I'll tell you. I was speaking at Krylike's real estate conference. Krylike is a large independent company, one of the top 5 in the U.S. independent companies in Southeast United States. Lawrence Yoon, who's the economist for NAR, was also speaking that day. He was on first, I was on second. And he came off stage and we had a little break and I was talking to him. And I asked him, I said, Lawrence, how many of these do you sell? How many of these NAR home buyer and seller reports do you sell a year? And he said to me, Dirk, you would never guess. And I said, what, there's 1.4 million members of NAR, 10% of them buy 150,000 people a year. He said, not even close. I said, wow. How about half of that, 75,000? He said, not even close. He said, we sell 5,000 copies a year. Now think about that. That's 5,000 copies of some of the best data and information that you can use in influencing prospects and being valuable to clients and prospects. And I'll show you some of the key charts and graphs that I would be pulling from and how I'd be using them. The second thing, everybody, is that the sources, like Realtor.org has a really great research resource section at Realtor.org that most people don't know. CoreLogic is another great source for data. I think Keeping Current Matters. I think Steve Harney and his team at Keeping Current Matters does a great job of creating graphics and analysis of markets, and he does primarily the nationwide overview. And then even RMLS, I would say, does a very good job in that local market action report. I would check with your MLS and look at the data that they produce on a regular basis. RMLS certainly covers a lot of Oregon, but ultimately you may have a different MLS in your area. The beast, in my opinion, and I'm merely giving you my opinion, everybody, the beast, in my opinion, is the Wall Street Journal. And Here's why, in my opinion, it's the beast. And all these articles have been in the last couple of weeks about real estate and real estate trends and what's happening in the real estate marketplace. But the beast, why I call Wall Street Journal the beast, is because it's the most respected news source in the world. The credibility that you get from utilizing Wall Street Journals and articles, whether you're posting them on social media, whether you're using them as part of your sales process, elevates your expert status and authority to consumers in the marketplace. It instantly says, hey, I'm well read, I am highly knowledgeable, and to me, it gives you an immense amount of credibility in terms of the marketplace. Now, I'm going to stay in screen share here for a little bit longer and go through some of the charts and graphs that exist in the NAR Home Buyer and Seller Report and how you might want to use them, how you might want to engage with them. Now, this is Exhibit 3.1. It's the first step taken by a home buyer. Here's the interesting thing. We are very high right here. If you look at all buyers and all first-time home buyers or repeat buyers, we're not at a real high level in terms of them. They're going to go online first, which is going to bring a lot of other agents in the mix or a lot of information sources in the mix. The thing I want to point to you all very quickly and efficiently is this particular box right here. And that is that 12% of all buyers go online and start looking for information about the home buying process. So you need to have that type of information, be producing that type of information, and have that readily available on your websites, on your blogs, in your social media postings, and tools in terms of regards to the buying process, because they are going and looking for that almost as much as they are going to look for a real estate agent overall. And so we need to be able to have that type of information that we are engaging and working with to be able to do that. 3.7 NAR, chart 3.7 here, goes through the number of homes viewed. And I think this is pertinent and interesting, and again, helps you in terms of establishing yourself as an expert and engaging with prospects. What I really want to point to is down here. The average home, a consumer, average number of homes, according to this chart, the consumer's view is 9. I would be framing that. In terms of that's the average number. If we haven't successfully found you a home after looking at 9, we should regroup and talk about your wants, needs, and desires and the framework of the marketplace so we can then go out and find that right property. If you frame that on an upfront basis, again, knowing the stats, showing the chart, you're an expert. The second thing is you also ferret out very quickly that prospect that might say, oh, no, there would be no way I could find my home in that time frame. I need to see 40, 50, 60, 80 homes, whatever the number is. And then, obviously you have a decision to make. Is that something that you want to engage in and fundamentally do? Chart 312, everybody, is really an interesting chart, and again, can be used to persuade, engage, and educate these consumers in today's marketplace. And I'm going to go ahead and box in a couple of things here with my annotation tool, and that is, when I look at this chart, I look at this group right here, that 41% of all buyers that search homes online, when they see something they like, They go drive by it, check out the neighborhood, the location. They don't walk through the home, but they drive by it. That is a group that is pulled themselves out of the mass of people looking online in real estate and has taken a demonstrated action. Now, how can I use that? Well, I can use that to convince sellers that curb appeal is amazingly important, because certainly online, but these people are driving by. That fundamentally they're getting in their car 41% of the time. Now think about that. You're at a listing presentation or you're having a conversation with a seller and you know that stat, but your competitor doesn't. And you show the chart and you understand the effects of that chart and an engagement to be able to convince these people to take, an action with you, meaning listing with you, as opposed to the competitors in the marketplace, right? To me, that's huge. This 417 goes through the importance to a consumer. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is for you to look at and evaluate, and we'll make these slides available to everybody in terms of looking at, okay, what is my strategy? And if you look, there is a couple of quick things, and I'm going to use my pointer here real quick. This is about knowledge of the purchase process. This is about knowledge of the real estate marketplace. This is about knowledge of the current area. And whether that's very important or somewhat important, those are very high scores. Their expectation of our knowledge and expertise, both in process, market, and local area, is off the chart. And we need to make sure that we've got sources and we've got opportunities to fundamentally engage them and teach them in terms of that. Now, I would tell you, here's another, I've got 2 or 3 quick other charts and then we'll move on, right? Number of weeks that have taken to sell a home. Number of weeks that it's taken to sell a home on average. Obviously, right, we've got a lot of activity, excuse me. Somehow that advanced itself and my finger went to circle. Look at that stage there, right? The ability to show the seller the urgency of pricing a home properly and getting the home sold quickly, that the vast majority of homes right now in today's market are selling pretty quickly overall. And we need to be competitive in terms of how we're approaching and how we're doing this in today's marketplace. Okay. So everybody, the NAR home buyer and seller report, in my opinion, is one of the most valuable tools that we can fundamentally use in today's marketplace, right? To convince, persuade, establish ourselves as a marketplace expert. Let me give you this one kind of last one. And this is really, again, for you in setting your strategy. It is not for the consumer, but I thought it was a really interesting chart. If you look at this, the farther away we get with a sell to buy prospect, the lower the likelihood that we're going to represent that individual on the buy. Only half of the people, even less than that, use the same agent when they're moving 11 to 20 miles away. Now, 11 to 20 miles away isn't that far away. It's within the confines of your area of expertise, but more than half the time, they don't utilize the same agent. So again, I'll make the slides and everything available to you. The goal has to be the economist of choice. You're going to use NAR stats, maybe Wall Street Journal, keeping current matters. You're going to use local stats in terms of your marketplace. Ultimately, my friends, we've got to control and understand what controls the overall marketplace. What is it that influences the marketplace? What is the number one influencer in terms of marketplace movement, conditions, strategy, and process? Now, there's a whole lot of things that do influence the marketplace. It is not one particular thing. It's not one particular thing. And in fact, what I would share with you is it's a whole bunch of these things that I'm showing on screen, but the primary driver and the primary driver of information and influence and persuasion is the relationship of supply and demand. Our job needs to be to convey accurate supply and demand positioning in the marketplace. That has to be the primary way we persuade. That has to be the primary strategy in terms of persuasion and information, because supply and demand is in the front end of this whole thing. The reason why in 08, 09, 010, 011, yes, the economy had an adjustment, but the biggest adjustment for the real estate marketplace is supply exploded and demand dropped precipitously, significantly. And it dropped so much that investors moved into the marketplace once supply was at such a high level, that pricing was at such a low level. The reverse is obviously happening right now, where we have a scenario where there's incredibly low supply and incredibly high demand, which is why we're seeing significant price appreciation, bidding wars going on, multiple offers, and continued price escalation in terms of the marketplace. It isn't anything we're doing. It's what's happening in the state of today's marketplace based on supply and demand. And there are reactions that are guaranteed to happen, meaning we're in low supply, high demand marketplace. Prices have to increase. They have to. It's basic economic theory. It's economics 101. And we're all running into people. Well, I'm waiting for the market to crash. I'm waiting for the market to correct. I'm waiting for the market to do X, Y, and Z. And the reality of it is, I'm waiting for it to go back to 08. I mean, if you had $1 for every time somebody said that in today's marketplace, what you've got to show them is supply and demand numbers. You've got to show them, and I'll teach you, and I'll show you some numbers from the market I live in Bend, Oregon, and I'll show you how to approach it and what to say in these situations based on market trends numbers. But when we get to the other angle, right, supply high, demand low, we're going to see prices correct. When we have a balance in terms of that, you're likely going to see, the softening of price appreciation. But in some markets, you would need 4x, 5x, 6x worth of inventory increase for the price appreciation to bend, right? To bend. And according to NAR, and let me go back on main screen here. According to NAR, in case maybe you don't know, and it's perfectly fine not to know up until today, but according to NAR, a balanced market exists when there's 6 months of inventory. In other words, the seller doesn't have undue control, the buyer doesn't have undue control, there's an even exchange, there's an even negotiation, nobody has any particular power over another. There's enough inventory that can be absorbed in a reasonable period of time that everybody, in essence, wins. Right? Nobody has any increased power. That's 6 months of the inventory. So number of buyers that buy every month against inventory that is available for them to select from. You divide those numbers and you come up with an absorption rate or remaining months of inventory rate, and 6 months is a balanced market. Anything below that is a seller's market. Anything above that is a buyer's market. And you have to have these conversations and this data to be able to convey to a prospect and engage with that prospect overall to convince and persuade them to take an action that is warranted or beneficial for them. The essence of great selling, my friends, is the ability to persuade somebody to do something that's beneficial to them, not to me, the salesperson, to the individual I'm talking to, that I'm serving, the buyer or the seller. Persuade them to take an action that's beneficial to them, or getting them to do that action quicker. And I think that appropriately describes where we're at right now in the marketplace. We have strong appreciation, we have low inventory, we have very upward pricing, we have stable interest rates at a very historic and low level. Convincing somebody to buy, provided that they have the financial wherewithal, obviously, and the reserves, and it doesn't put them in a overtly stressful situation beyond the stress of just actually buying a home, they are going to benefit from that. And they are going to be wealthier in the future. And so your job, my job, is to be able to convey that in a manner with evidence and numbers. This happens to be the Bend real estate market. I'm going to use it. I live at Bend, Oregon. I'm going to use it as kind of our precursor here in terms of explanation. If you look on the far right, let me go ahead and grab a pointer here rather than something else. If you look on the far right, this is the absorption rate. That happens to be July's. Here's was September's, most recent. I mean, look at the inventory. It's less than a month in most sections of the marketplace. Now, to me, everybody, you want to create what I'd characterize as an essential grid. This is an essential grid. Now, that doesn't mean you have to follow the price points over here. I made this uniform and easy. But what I would tell you is you have to understand the active inventory. You've got to understand the new inventory, what is pending. What pended in the last 30 days is the most accurate view of the buyer pool in your marketplace. And so as an example, obviously the upper end of the marketplace has heated up substantially in the Bend, Oregon marketplace. There are 39 sales that happened in the month of July. And I'm not talking about closings, I'm talking about pendings, new sales, buyer and seller agreed. There was 54 in August and 39 in September. So roughly about 43, 44 sales per month on average. Oh, excuse me, sorry about that. That was new listings. So there was 59 sales, 56 sales, and 38 sales. So that dropped quite a bit in the last 30 days. But ultimately, you're looking at, again, mid-40s. Mid-40s in terms of sales, mid-40s in terms of listings, stability in terms of the absorption rate. You can define the pool of buyers. You can define the likely pool of sellers that are coming to the marketplace. You can show your client that the market is stable. And the other thing that I would say to you is, again, based on getting to a balanced market where appreciation would flatten, the Bend, Oregon marketplace overall, look at this. This is the aggregate, has about 3 weeks of inventory. To get to a balanced marketplace, we would need 6x the number of listings that we have on the marketplace right now to achieve a balanced marketplace. So 197 listings times 6 is 1,200 actual listings on the market to align the market in a balanced marketplace. This is the kind of math you need to do and convey to your prospects. What would it take in inventory increase to achieve a balanced market? Now, I looked up the data and I know the data. We haven't had 1,200 active listings in more than 10 years, in more than a decade in the Ben marketplace, active at any one time. It's probably been in almost any marketplace you were selling in. It's probably been 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 years since you had the appropriate inventory that would create a balance in the marketplace. My friends, you got to understand that this is the kind of keys you need to convey and data you need to convey to consumers. This is the kind of thing they need to understand, that what are the odds of the inventory, and you ask them the question, what are the odds of the inventory going up by 6x or 5x or 4x in the next handful of years? And just so you know, that number last at that inventory level was X years ago. My friends, we need to be able to convey this and utilize this. Now, all these numbers were pulled out right out of the MLS. It's very easy to do. And you create a grid. And you create a grid where you can engage with these numbers and show them. You know, you could make it easier. To me, the minimum would be I need active in different price ranges. I need pending in different price ranges. I don't necessarily need to do LP change. I need solds. I need a list price to sale price. You could do price reductions, but you don't need them. You need an absorption rate, remaining months of inventory. And if you did this 3 months running, wrote a couple of paragraph narrative in terms of what you see in the numbers in the marketplace and the trends and what's happening in the marketplace, you would quickly be recognized as the expert in your particular marketplace. People would seek you out. They would understand that you know what you're doing. They would understand that you know the data, and they would understand that you are worthy of having conversations with because of your market-based knowledge in today's marketplace. When you get an encounter that buyer that says, right, well, I don't ever want to offer full price, and I think I should be able to negotiate, you go straight to your chart and you show them the list price to sale price, and I'm clicking my arrow in the lower right-hand corner, that is running between 100% in most price ranges and almost 101, 102 in terms of the price ranges. Why would a seller sell if they're priced competitively and they're priced well? Why would a seller sell for 90 cents on the dollar when the data on all sales shows that they can acquire 100 or 101% of a reasonably competitive asking price? See, these are the things that we have to be able to show and engage prospects with to be able to get them to take an action and get comfortable with today's marketplace and the opportunities. See, that chart shows level of activity. It shows the pool of buyers. Now, obviously, there are more buyers than successfully buy or go pending in a 30-day period, but it does show a quantifiable pool of buyers. It shows the general competition between buyers and sellers. It shows the success rate of sellers. It shows the aggressiveness of sellers. It shows what well-priced sellers can expect, what buyers have to do. In other words, the terms and the conditions that buyers have to operate under. Everybody, the real estate market is in essence the playing field that you're playing the game of real estate on. It's like, to use an analogy, it's like the football field. And some football fields are made of grass. Some football fields are made of AstroTurf, so to speak, or some kind of turf. And if the rain is coming down on a grass field and it's been raining for days, it's likely going to be quite muddy. The reality of it is, for buyers, the field is a little bit muddy right now. They need to do what's necessary based on the field conditions. And that's what you're trying to show the buyers and the sellers, is the field conditions of today. 6 months from now, the sun may be out, it may be drying out, and it'll be less challenging for the buyers. But ultimately, we need to show them the field conditions. Now, I believe, and I'm more persuasive. I take more of a persuasive stance of forecasting based on data and information, and maybe it's my particular style. It also is, in 30 years, I've seen 4 or 5 market cycles, so I understand the signs and understand what's going to happen, and I can see what's going to happen in the future. If you have the view of, hey, I don't want to influence, I don't want to persuade, I don't know what's going to happen, that's okay. But I think ultimately, everybody, one of the challenges we have is, right, I may be on a 9 or a 10 scale. You may be in that 1 or 2 area. What I would tell you is the middle zone is no man's land. And what I mean by that is, I think you have to stake a side. Either I'm going to be hedging my bets and, hey, I don't know what's going to happen as much, or I'm going to be more certain and engaged on the front end. But I think if you're in the middle and you're waffling between the two, you don't build credibility or trust. You flip-flop, so to speak, to use a political term, and it makes it difficult for you to persuade anybody. And it gives you this uncertain tone in your voice and in your conversations. Now, I really want to focus you on one of the key strategies in being persuasive. And really, it's really focusing on asking them what their conclusions are, what they have researched in the real estate market, and where and what data and information they're drawing from to reach their conclusions. See, I think you have to, before you go into a good chunk of data, you can sprinkle in a little data in the conversations. But when you go into education mode, whether it's the buyer consultation or the listing presentation, or you've done a showing and you're trying to educate them in terms of the marketplace, I think before you go into those assertive moments, you want to ask the prospect where they're drawing their information from, right? What websites, what information they have that is causing them to reach a particular conclusion. Because my friends, that data may be wrong. They may be drawing their information from sources they're not as credible as NAR, CoreLogic, KCM, the Wall Street Journal, your local data, your local MLS. One of the big challenges we're facing in the real estate industry is And don't miss this. Don't miss this. The consumer thinks they have access to the same amount of information as you do. They think because there's a lot of data and information on the MLS, they think that they have access to the data very similar to you. And they don't. They don't. I mean, if they're sitting on Zillow and Trillia and Realtor.com, they're getting some data from those sources, but mainly they're getting properties. They're getting properties that come on the marketplace, and the span between list price and sale price can be completely different. They're recognizing that there isn't a lot of inventory. They're recognizing that homes are selling very quickly, but they don't have the granular data to understand where the trends are and where the market is moving to, and they only assume they do. And they assume, again, that it's the same as you. And so I would be asking questions. Can I ask what information or sources that you are citing or gathering your data from to form your opinion? Right? Hey, I would assume that you're using some credible sources to draw your conclusions. Can I ask what those sources are? Right? And the other thing, everybody, and I'm going to make this comment in this point, is that when the economy swirls and you've got adjustments in the marketplace, I find very frequently that most people assume that all asset classes, and I'll define that term, move in lockstep. And what I mean by asset classes is that stocks, that's real estate, commodities, gold, etc., all move in similar ways and similar trajectory. Right, if the stock market goes down, the real estate market goes down. That's the perception of consumers. And that's not true. We're intertwined in terms of asset classes, but they don't move exactly in lockstep. You could have a real estate market that is very robust and a stock market that is not. The other core question to set up delivering expert status information is, how long do you plan on staying in the next home? Right? Longevity of ownership removes risk. Let me say that again. Longevity of ownership removes risk. You can look at any 10-year period of time in real estate and the market went up. If you bought at the worst possible time in the last 50 years, it would have been late 2007 into 2008. I bought a commercial building in July 2007. I could not have timed that purchase any worse if I had even tried. And so the reality of it is that, just to give you a little perspective on that, right, commercial building went down to half its value. Yeah, I could have short sold it and dumped it and gotten out of it, but you know, I had to have a place to put my company. I was going to pay rent to somebody. So, okay, I just hung in there. And it took a while. Obviously, it's now more than 10 years later. And, right, that particular building is now up about 32% from where I bought it from. But it was down 50% 4 years after I bought it. Longevity matters. If a buyer is going to be in a home for a long period of time, 10 years as an example, the issue isn't as much what they paid for that particular property. The issue is the fact that they secured the long-term financing at a very low rate, and if they're comfortable with the payment, they're going to win. If it's a 2-year move, or a 3-year move, yeah, there's a lot more risk, and it may not be in their best interest at that point to fundamentally buy, and you need to counsel them in that particular scenario. So asking them how long they plan on staying in this next home, how long is this long-term purchase? I mean, my particular advice to anybody that asks me, and I get asked all the time, is buy the longest term home you can right now that you're comfortable with and comfortable with the payment overall. Because it'll be a lot more expensive in the future. And if you undershoot, meaning you buy a 3 or a 5-year home instead of a 10-year home, you're going to have in 5 years a pretty big wake-up call in terms of the interest rate that's going to change everything dramatically. Let me give you one bonus question, everybody, and it's not in your workbooks, it's not on slides, it's not anywhere. Here's the question, write it down. When somebody gives you, right, hey, we need a larger yard, we need an extra bedroom, we need a third bay in the garage, whatever their needs are, then you ask this question. Are there options in your current home to blank? And you fill in the blank with whatever they gave you. Are there options in your current home to be able to create that 4th bedroom? Are there options in your current backyard to be able to put in that pool? Whatever it is, and they usually list 2 or 3 things, whatever it is, you ask them that question. When they respond that, no, there aren't any options to create that, or it would be too expensive, or we just don't have the space to be able to do that. No, we don't want to go through a remodel, whatever they say. You know their probability of moving is significantly higher. You know that this isn't a person that you should get face-to-face with, share with them the numbers and data in terms of the marketplace, so they can make the best decision that is possible. And in your workbook, in your, in the slides that I'll share with you, I've given you scripts and dialogues to present short-term, medium-term, long-term, and utilizing interest rates and other factors to be able to convince and persuade. This is a CoreLogic stat, everybody, that I think is really good. It encompasses what they've projected the 1-year forecast to be. And this was done pre-COVID to be in terms of appreciation. If you look at us in the upper left-hand corner in Oregon, we were projected early part of the year to be at 5.9% appreciation. Even with COVID, my friends, I think we're going to be at that number or maybe even beyond. So, right, very good chart in terms of data. And these are the kind of things, as I said, that CoreLogic produces. And I think you want to be able to engage in that forecast of appreciation and using the numbers. Let me get to the final kind of series of questions. I think we have to probe concern. What is their primary concern? What is their hesitation? Are there others? And then fundamentally rank them in terms, or scale them. Bottom question, everybody, is a scale question. On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rank this? Because here's the thing. There's an age-old rule called the rule of 4. And the rule of 4 says this. People take actions. They decide to do business with you or with somebody else. They decide to take action in a purchase or listing their home for 4 reasons. And the number one reason, if I understand what that number one reason is, it carries 70% of the weight. The number 2 is 15, the number 3 is 10, the number 4 is 5. That's how it breaks out. And I need to be able to understand what is important to them so I can select the right data and persuasion points to engage them and to utilize them. All right. Now, I will stay on and answer any questions that anyone may have in the chat panel. Again, it's pulling and utilizing these resources that I shared with you today and get strategic with a few little scripts and dialogues to be able to persuade, to be able to connect supply and demand in, because that's the ultimate arbiter. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be delighted to answer them.
Thank you so much, Dirk. This was incredibly helpful and insightful. I really appreciate you coming on and speaking to this. We'll give it just a few more seconds for questions. All right. Well, it looks like there's no questions. We have a thank you.
You're welcome, Derek. If you have any questions, everybody, let me put my email in there, and then you can shoot them directly after the fact. There it is in the chat panel. I'm happy to answer any questions or help any people at any time. So this is just key, everybody. You've got to master this piece of the puzzle.
Thank you so much, Dirk.
My pleasure.
All right, everyone. I hope you've had a chance to copy Dirk's email. If not, feel free to email us here at OAR, and we can also share that on with you. So thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.